Come on in. We'll get started in just a minute. Give everybody a chance to get in, grab their coffees, get their questions together. Welcome, welcome. Happy Wednesday morning. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. Please drop where you're coming in from in the comments. It's the only way I know anyone's here is your comments, so please drop them. Also, we'll get ready for some questions. I do have a topic I wanted to start out with, but also want to get into everybody's questions. So start dropping your questions in the chat as we welcome everybody in. Again, I'd love to hear where you're joining from. I am also streaming to YouTube for the first time ever. Last week was my first live stream ever. So I've now added YouTube. So that's exciting and terrifying. But we'll do that. Also, I'm super excited to start bringing other recruiting guests on. So veteran recruiters, resume writers who are prior recruiters, career coaches who have experience recruiting, the Rebel HR vetted, approved crew. I'm hoping to start bringing on some guests. So you won't just hear me and my 2 cents and my voice, but also some of the other awesome people that are in community with me out here on LinkedIn. And there's a whole crew of us who love helping job seekers. And so, yeah, I'm excited to bring folks on. Also, the opportunity for them and for you, if you're listening right now, is you can promote your job seeker services as well, as long as it's vetted, approved, non-grifter folks offering them. That's my only condition, is that you actually bring real experience, years of recruiting, real understanding of the nuance. You're not out here posting engagement and rage bait about, AI, ATS is eating your resumes and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I started this whole thing. Just FYI, is because I'm constantly out on LinkedIn in the comments correcting this grifter-esque misinformation that's being peddled to get clients and customers for coaching or resume writing. And, it's very clear to me, if people are peddling misinformation and unwilling to understand the nuance, they're not going to be able to guide you anyway. So I figure we, the vetted recruiting talent folks, have to be as loud as the grifters. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this. Not because I like seeing myself on video. That's not the truth at all. So thank you for being here. Hold on, let me open up the comments and see how we're doing. So drop your questions. Hold on, I've got this little banner here to remind you to drop your questions. Look at that. I'm learning how to use StreamYard, and I can drop little messages and scroll them. I even have a QR code for later. I'm excited to be learning a new skill and a new technology. That's cool too. So I want to start out talking about, until we get some questions in the comments, I want to just raise something that has been a pretty hot topic this past week. I've seen a whole lot of posts talking about AI interviews, the thing that happens before you ever talk to a person after you apply. Also, any other friction or asks of job seekers that happen after you apply, but before any human step happens. I actually participated in one of these things not that long ago. There was a predictive index. It took me about an hour to do both the aptitude side of the predictive index as well as the personality side. So basically, they had me take an IQ test. That's kind of what an aptitude test is, as well as a personality assessment. That was about 2 weeks ago. And I haven't heard anything back at all. No acknowledgement that I took it. No thanks for taking it. No, you passed, but we're not moving forward. No, you failed and we're not moving. Nothing. I have no idea what happened. So I'm starting to also bring a job seeker perspective around, like, some of this stuff doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? If you're going to ask me to do something before I've ever even spoken to anybody, and I have, take the good faith to do it, I feel like an automated email saying, hey, thanks so much for taking this or doing this would be in order. But that wasn't really what I wanted to talk about. That's just what raised this conversation this morning in the post that I posted on LinkedIn. I do want to talk about some misunderstandings around that AI screening thing that happens after you apply. So you apply for the job and you get a message and it says, hey, thanks for applying. When you have a moment, and it'll tell you how long you need, please click this link and take this assessment. And you're thinking to yourself, okay. And maybe it's not an assessment. Maybe it's an AI screening. They actually are calling it AI interview. I don't like calling it an interview because an interview is like a bidirectional exchange of information. And this is only a one-way exchange of information. You're the only one providing information. They're just asking questions. So I don't love calling it an interview. I think that's part of why it's seen as like an immoral kind of thing. But I do want to talk about the fact that people think that that step is replacing a human step. That's not exactly what's happening. This is a response to volume, okay? We used to maybe get 100 applicants for one job, and our processes worked pretty well to get through those. Now we may have 1,000 applicants for that same one job, and we're just one human with bandwidth, right? And we won't be as effective necessarily screening through 1,000 applicants. So we add this AI screening above the first human step to give more people the opportunity to participate. I know that's not what it seems like, but that's actually what it is. So the perception I hear on LinkedIn almost daily right now is it's a sign that the company doesn't care about you, that they don't respect you, they don't respect your time or anything else. They're doing this particularly because they don't care about you. I can tell you after being in recruiting for almost 30 years that no decisions are made from that frame. Like, we're never sitting in a room like, how can we torture job seekers that want to come work for us? Like, that doesn't even make a whole lot of sense. And it wouldn't benefit the recruiting function or the ability to attract good talent, which, hey, ability to attract talent is a metric for a successful company. Like, that's a reality. So it's never like, well, we just don't care. It is that when you have 1,000 applicants, we can only reasonably talk to like 20, 30 people in a first screening round, right? And then we send the best of those 20, 30 to the hiring leader to continue the interview process. So if we have to whittle that 1,000 applicant pool down to 30, we're going to end up rejecting a ton of qualified people. That's happening every day now out here. Everybody knows they're qualified for a job and they're getting rejected anyway. That doesn't mean there's something broken in the process. It means that out of 1,000, 200 were qualified. And then we had to make choices to narrow that down to 30. Okay. We don't love those choices that narrow 200 qualified people down to 30 that we can talk to. So instead, we're like, okay, well, let's send this AI screening thing to the 200 that are qualified and let them add more color to a 2D resume. Let them share more about themselves and, why it's interesting, why they're interesting, what is their value proposition, like, why do we want to hire this person? So wouldn't you rather us include those 200 qualified folks than have to reject 170 qualified people based on whatever filters we can come up with. And really, it just ends up being the 30 we chose are the best of the 200. But if we let all 200 participate in something where they can give verbal answers to, deeper questions, that helps more of those 200 be considered realistically. I just wanted to share that alternative perspective because I really do think that this is an area where it's causing people a lot of heartburn and stress, and they're making judgments and assumptions about it that just aren't really true. And here's another factoid. It's just a fact. It's math. It's statistics. Whether you like it, don't like it, think it's a moral issue around AI or not, if you participate, it will give you an edge. And the reason why is because a lot of people won't. So they're saying close to 50% of all people are initially opting out of doing that AI screening layer. That gives you a heck of an edge if you do it, right? 50%. And it tends to be the people who have the most alternative options that bow out. It takes a lot of privilege to say, hey, I don't like this process. I don't want to show up and talk to a screen for 5 minutes. Okay. So it's a good time to do it. I understand new things are uncomfortable. New things are always uncomfortable. The very first time any of us interviewed with a human, it was probably uncomfortable, but you practice and you get comfortable. Okay. Remember, this is new technology. I'm seeing people on the regular saying how innovative they are and they're early adopters of AI and but they refuse to participate in this AI screening layer. I feel like early adopters and innovative people in general have at the very least a curiosity about new technology. They may not love it, but they surely are going to test it out before they come to some sort of conclusion. But you wouldn't believe the number of people that I talk to on a regular basis who both hate AI screening interviews, AI one-way interviews, and also have never done one. So take that with a grain of salt. Like, it is what it is. I do think it's a great opportunity for people to increase their chances and reduce the competitiveness by being willing to participate. So that's my perspective on one-way AI interviews. I don't think they're going anywhere. I think we're going to see a lot more of these in the future. So I really want people to have the opportunity to, entertain different perspectives on the conversation, on the topic. Like, it's okay if at the end of the day you truly decide that it's not for you and you need to opt out. A lot of people have a perception that neurodivergent folks are at a disadvantage with AI one-way videos. I'm highly neurodivergent, like on the far end of the ADHD spectrum. And I actually have no issues at all. In fact, I'm somewhat less distracted and able to answer more concisely and clearly when I'm not also trying to read your tone and body language of the person interviewing me. Okay. So it allows me to focus on my answers and to get clear on those. And again, not wonder why the interviewer is fidgeting, or why it looks like they may have rolled their eyes at, or why they're shifting around and they're like, that's just my experience. So again, at the very least, just test it out and practice it. Hey, Nick, how are you? Nick says, let's actually show this on the screen. So Nick said, it's not about new things. The tech, I'm sorry, that's not Nick. Sorry. Nick said, people think the AI screeners will remove the black hole, but recruiters still need to get back to notify and update the candidates. So it's really just kicking the can. Well, no, it's truly about giving more people an opportunity. You came in a little after, but like, if we have 1,000 applicants for one job, more than likely about 200 of them will be qualified. Instead of us humans deciding which 30 we're going to talk to, because we can't talk to 200 for every single job. So we're going to, by default, reject 170 qualified people. We're going to keep the 30 best qualified and interview them. What the AI screening layer allows us to do is include all 200 qualified candidates and give them an opportunity to add more color to their resume. It's just a 2D resume. We don't know much about you, but if you get a chance to talk and answer some questions and let your personality come through, now we have a little bit more to go on. So we're giving 200 people an opportunity to participate instead of 30. That's what it's replacing. It's replacing getting rejected when you're qualified without talking to somebody. It's not this instead of a human interview step. That still happens after this step. So I just want to clarify that. Somebody else had a thought. It's not about new things. The tech removes the human connection that historically happens at the initial phase. Feel it negatively impacts candidate experience, but that said, they aren't going anywhere. And I think there are some advantages. For example, AI can read a technical engineering resume compared to a human. Sure. And also, like I told you, it doesn't actually remove the human connection step. This was placed above that. Okay. So again, our process used to look like we get 100 applicants for one job. Let me take this down because it's blocking me. Okay, so we used to get 100 applicants for one job, and our process worked pretty well to get to 20 or 30 that we could then speak to at the screening level and then put into the interview process. After those 20, 30, we talk to those, and then we maybe take the best 5, 6, 7 and send them to the hiring manager. Okay. Now we may have 1,000 instead of 100 applicants. So instead, this isn't replacing a human step. I'll say it again. This is replacing you getting rejected without any opportunity to say anything. Because we simply, of the 1,000 applicants, there may be 200 qualified people. We can't talk to all 200. Okay. So this gives all 200 the ability to add more data points to their resume. And from there, we can choose 20 to 30 to move forward. So again, this doesn't change anything about the process as it was. It's on top of the process to allow more people to participate. The idea that we do it because we don't care or respect people's time is silly. Like, that doesn't make sense. I don't know people who get into recruiting or HR because they hate people and they want to torture people. I mean, I'm sure they're out there. There's horrible people in all industries, but like, most of us genuinely like people. That's why we do this for a living. We have to talk to people all the time, every day. Right? So it would be really hard to do that if we just simply didn't care about people at all. Okay. So I think that it's important at the end of the day to make the decision around the one-way AI interview that's right for you, but do it after considering all of the perspectives around it. Don't choose or to do it or not do it just based on an assumption you're making or a perception of a morality issue. When people are explaining, that's not why this exists. Also, you have to understand there are all these AI, auto apply tools that are applying for people while they sleep. So the volume problem isn't something that we've created alone. It's just what it is. And so AI helped create the volume problem, and AI is helping us deal with that same volume problem, right? It's not like, it's not a one-sided efficiency discussion. It's just conditional. It's where we are. So throw some more questions in there. This is a really hot topic, and I know people have a lot to say about it and a lot of opinions about it. And I'd love to talk about those. But what else? What else is there? Throw another question in there. I have a question for you guys. Would you do an assessment? Would you take an assessment after an application, but before talking to a person? So you complete the application and then you get an immediate email that says, hey, thanks so much for applying. Please click this link and take this predictive index or whatever, this personality assessment, or go ahead and click this link and take this aptitude test. Are you willing to do that before you talk to a person? That's the question. I have a lot of thoughts on it. It's also because we are in a very imbalanced job market and there's a lot more job seekers than there are jobs, especially in certain concentrated areas like, tech and adjacent tech areas. that friction at the top of the funnel is also similarly to the AI one-way interview. It's intended to help us filter down the talent funnel and pipeline to the interview process. Like there has to be a way to get from 1,000 applicants to a manageable number that can go through an interview process. So are you or are you not willing to do those kinds of things? And the reason I'm asking is because I recently applied for a contract role, and it was a contract role, and they sent me 2 assessments, an hour worth of both aptitude and personality immediately after the application. And because I understand what's happening in the market and the volume, et cetera, I was happy to do it. I was very well qualified for the role. So I figured, well, if I do these assessments, surely I'm going to have an edge because I'm sure a lot of people noped out. So I did. I spent like an hour doing both the behavioral or the personality as well as the aptitude. And then nothing, crickets. 2 weeks ago, I did it and nothing. I've gotten I didn't even get a, hey, thanks so much for doing this email, like acknowledging that I did it. So I thought that was interesting. I put a survey up today on LinkedIn. I'm really curious how other recruiters and recruiting professionals and experts think about that because, I mean, that's a little audacious. And I'm always squarely in the camp of we can't give feedback. We especially can't give feedback at the resume screening stage. We know nothing to give feedback. And then certainly, even I'm not really a proponent of feedback at any stage of the process, but I do believe in closure and communication. I think it's absolutely important to communicate, acknowledge people, acknowledge that they did the thing we asked them to do, and give them some sort of response to that, an idea about moving forward or some kind of closure. So, hey, Sarah, happy you're here. Thomas said, let's throw this up here. Thomas said, I've done exactly that for my previous role. If I remember correctly, it was actually predictive index. So for me, I don't mind doing it, but I prefer to do it after actually speaking to someone for at least a first round screening interview. Totally. I completely understand that. And I can tell you as somebody who once in my whole almost 30-year career, I did add an aptitude assessment before the conversation, the first human discussion, and I hated it. I felt horrible. I felt like I was doing something totally wrong, but I was swimming in volume, and I was also trying to build my team simultaneous. It was a hyperscale, a 20x hyperscale situation. Okay. So we had just closed a B round for like $100-something million. Of course, once that's announced, everybody and their brother is trying to get on board this rocket ship that very clearly is taking off. It's like Series B growth round, huge. Okay, everybody wants in. I get it. But I had to put something above that and use that as a filter. And I'm sure we lost great people. But it also ends up sort of being like a little bit of a humility filter, right? Like a willingness. I really want to work here, and thus I'm willing to put in a little bit of extra effort or challenge my assumptions a bit because I really want to work here. I definitely had people who reached out to me and were like, I've been doing what I do for 20 years. How dare you insult me by asking me to take an aptitude test? That was the humility filter working as designed, I guess, right? I didn't mind taking it. I was 20 years into my career. So, there's that. Oh, Thomas, don't worry. Sorry. I am, look, I can't be up here completely by myself. So I really need it's weird. Hey, this is so funny. Just like an AI interview is weird talking to a screen, so is this format where I'm literally talking to what all I can see is me on the screen with my background. So it's like bringing you guys and your questions up helps it be less weird for me. So I really appreciate it. Sarah, it depends on the assessment, she says. Yeah, I get it. This kind of friction isn't appreciated. I think everybody would prefer to do it after talking to a person. So it's like once you talk to a person and there's alignment and resonance, like, yeah, now you're excited about the role even more. And now you're going to be willing to do the thing also because the person you just spoke to probably explained the process and why they're doing it and blah, blah, blah. But in this market, okay, please listen here clearly. This is important for job seekers, guys. This is important. That's why I'm here, okay? In this market where the volume in certain areas, tech and all tech adjacent, right? It's an imbalanced job market, right? So that friction at top of funnel benefits you to do it, right? I know people think, well, if I refuse to do it, that sends a message to the company that this friction is not acceptable. That's not what happens. If we have 1,000 applicants and a bunch don't opt in, it actually, we move right along. We just move right along. There are always going to be people who will do it, right? And, because we need jobs. We've attached survival to jobs. So, like, yes, the process is changing. People don't love change, but we do know that we're in a period of change and adapting. I mean, AI is like the industrial revolution on crack, right? We're all adapting here. All of us, not like some of us, everyone. Everyone has to shapeshift in this next chapter. But some people are more comfortable with change than others, right? I love change. I'm a weirdo. I was the kid who used to move the furniture around my bedroom every 3 months because I needed a change of, perspective or a different view. And some people absolutely hate change and it feels like death, and they'll do anything in their power to avoid it. But again, we are changing. The world is changing. How we hire is changing. AI is causing change. And it's important that we're open, at least curious about the new technology and open to the discussions around it versus just, refusing. So yeah, let's see. Oh, we've got questions. So Sarah said, as a candidate, I prefer to talk to a person first. Totally. When I have been on the recruiting side, I preferred to narrow down the candidate pool with assessment first. Honestly, I prefer to talk to people first, whether I'm the job seeker or the recruiter. It feels a little arrogant to me to ask people to do a thing before I've talked to them. It's like this assumption that they're interested to the tune of investing time before I've even bothered to talk to them about it. But it has, like, never before has it had as much of a utility as it does today. The reason we're having to do that, again, and you can see this any way you want, but the reality is we're doing that to include more people. If we have no filter at top of funnel and we simply have to just whittle 1,000 applicants to 20 we can talk to, that's a much more, you should be much more bothered by or concerned about that process than about a tool we use to help us do that. Because if it's just humans looking at 1,000 resumes and choosing 20, that doesn't sound effective at all. I know what I'm capable of. I can screen through a whole lot of resumes, but a couple hours after doing it, my eyes start glazing over, my head starts pounding, and I don't know what I'm looking at. AI is going to give you the same screening 300 applicants in as the first one they screened. It's going to be the same. Me, after 300, I'm going to need to stop and pick it up later is what's going to happen. So I just want people to, again, I respect everybody's free will and choice to do what's right for them. But if you are a job seeker in this market, and Jesus, sorry, hold on. My phone interferes. If you're a job seeker in this market and you really need to work, this is not the time to try and make a stand, and it's not doing what you think it's doing anyway. Like, truly. I mean, participating in anything that's inconvenient at the top of the funnel, 100% is always going to improve your chances. It's going to give you an edge. It'll give you an edge. I hope you guys can hear me. My speaker is doing weird stuff. Okay, let's see what Thomas said. You're coming back up on the screen, Thomas. Okay, I can understand the humility filter and using an assessment for that. But for something like the predictive index thing, that can take 30 to 45 minutes. I think it's just proper to have spoken with them first to give them a heads up. If it's a quick 5 to 10 minute thing that's tacked onto the application, I'm more open to that. But for these longer ones, I think it's better to speak to the candidate first. For me, that would stick out more and make me want to work for them more due to the trends. I completely agree. And I've explained the volume, why that's not possible. Again, if I'm, instead of whittling down 1,000 applicants to 30 or 20 using my own devices, my own AI or my own eye, that's not going to go as well for anybody in the process. Okay. So I understand, but if I'm saying I'm going to expand, instead of only talking to 30, I'm going to give 200 people a chance to get to that conversation instead of just rejecting those extra 170 people that are qualified. That's why we're giving the assessment at top of funnel. Okay. So if you shift your narrative and your mind frame around this and understand that sometimes you're being given these things before talking to a person, so that you have a better chance of talking to a person. If I had to call 200 people to explain why I need them to do the assessment first, then it would defeat the point of putting that thing on top of the human layer, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm going to call 200 people, which is in no way realistic, like there's no world where that's possible. Also, remember, a recruiter might have 20 jobs at once. So it's not just the 200 applicants in that one funnel, it's 200 applicants in 20 different funnels that are qualified. Okay. So giving you the opportunity to do the assessment, that helps you stand out. It gives you an opportunity to shine. You might like do really well and whatever. So there is no real way. But what I do think companies should do, and if any of my recruiter friends are out here listening, there has to be better transparent communication. Thomas, if there was really good written communication after you apply, explaining, like I've explained to you, that we really want to give more people an opportunity to participate. We want to allow you the opportunity to add color and essence to your resume by talking to us a little bit. Would that change things if the communication were transparent and you understood clearly why we're doing this, and that it's not a matter of not respecting your time. It's a matter of we had to put something in place in order to properly manage our pipelines, right? So I'm hoping the whole point of these conversations is, one, to help job seekers see this from a different perspective, from a different, a different perception of it. But also to encourage recruiters to get better at communicating it, get better at the transparency. You always are sending a thank you for applying email. And of course, there's the email that invites them to do whatever thing, whether it predictive index, whether it AI one-way interview. In that communication, you can really explain the why and what you're using it for and how you're using it. And also, again, express that this is our way of being more inclusive, not less. So I hope that is like sort of landing. Let's see. We have another point. But doesn't this help to see how you react when you don't know the process and what's next? I'm not sure I know what you mean, but doesn't this help to see how you react when you don't know the process and no, I mean, I have been doing this for literally almost 30 years. I've designed interview processes from scratch. Okay. I've never, ever, this isn't about like some gotcha. We're not trying to like test people and see how they react when they have no context and no idea what's going on. No, that's not actually a very common scenario in the workplace. Like, we're not trying to test. I can think of a couple different types of jobs like sales, recruiting, or whatever, where being put on the spot and seeing if you're quick-witted and how if you can handle that quickly and, be able to communicate clearly without any kind of, context. But that's rare, and we don't really do that. We really don't do that. That's not what we do. We're not trying to catch you unaware and see how you react at all. The stuff I read online about all those gotcha things and they didn't put the water glass away in the sink after the interview, like the stupid ass, excuse my French, I do speak a little French, but stupid ass tests like that. Like, the CEO left a crumpled up piece of paper in the corner of the interview room to see if the candidate would pick it up or so. I mean, like, these are not real signals. These are gimmicks and games that people are playing. And I don't know why they're doing it. At this rate, pretty much anything that sounds really strange like that, I just chalk it up to engagement bait or rage bait on the internet. Like, people will say any damn thing at this point just to get some clicks and some dopamine flowing, and good on them, I guess. But like, that's why I exist out here, because and because, I can get just as many clicks probably giving really good high value information that people need and will help them. So yeah, no, we really don't do that quite that way. Whoever's saying what's going on, you are coming up as LinkedIn user. So you're not even like fully logged in wherever you're listening from. So I don't even know who it is, but hey, I appreciate you being here. I would love somebody to throw in another question. I could talk about the like top of funnel friction stuff, the AI one-way interviews and the assessments and all that. I could do that stuff all day long. But we can also entertain some other questions. I will say, I will add that I have heard people say, like, I value my time and I know my value and worth, and therefore I don't do any assessments ever, any homework assignments, any whatever. A lot of people assume that those things are being used for, hey, Alex, a lot of those things are being used for, God, I totally lost my, Alex. Anyway, whatever I was going to say. But see, I told you I'm incredibly ADHD. It is what it is. I'm doing my best. Bear with me. Yeah. So completely lost my train of thought. Thank you, Alex, for announcing yourself. And I appreciate you being here. But yeah, let's ask Let's ask more questions. Let's ask more questions. What else? I'll talk about anything. I mean, you can ask me the most controversial HR or hell, I jump into conversations about PIPs. People have an assumption, and it's probably mostly true, that PIPs are typically used to eliminate people, right? To start the documentation process to terminate. And it can be used that way, but I actually used a PIP twice. Just twice. I've only ever issued two. I'm not really an HR. I was an HR leader. I was a people leader for like a year because I was like a first in recruiter and there was no HR leader and there were no. So I took on kind of all of the people ops things in that startup. And so I was, for a year, I got to be in on things like performance and reviews and PIPs, et cetera. So I've issued two PIPs. With both PIPs, I had full intention of, Thomas, I'll get back to that. But I've used two PIPs, and with both PIPs, I had absolute full intention of saving both people. That was my desire. Like, I'm not an HR person. Like, I don't see my role as protecting the company from its people. I think that's an absurd, ridiculous dichotomy. How can you take care of people and protect the company from those same people? No. So I've always been the people person who was actually for the people. So again, I used it twice and I saved one out of the two. I will say that sometimes if it results in termination, it's because the person themselves saw it as starting the termination process. They didn't believe it was a possibility to turn it around. So they shut down and started looking. And that happens just as often as an HR person only using the PIP to start the termination process. So, and I'm obviously, the assumption is because it's happened a lot. And so it's not invalid, but if you're put on a PIP and you have an opportunity to actually improve, like there are actual clear metrics that can be attained to stay, why not do it? That's my perspective on that. All right. So I was talking about how some people say they know their worth and won't do. Okay. Yeah. So I've heard a lot of that lately. But the market has completely changed. So if you had that perception and you started thinking that way like 10, 15 years ago, I need you to understand the market and the supply and demand in the market has completely shifted. It's been, for all intents and purposes, again, I'm always talking about like tech and tech adjacent, right? The laptop class, the LinkedIn laptop class. I'm talking about tech and tech adjacent, right? I don't know what's happening in healthcare and construction, although both of those seem to be in demand. So I'm talking about what's been most affected since COVID, okay? We had this huge hiring push because COVID was a forcing factor to like complete all the remaining digital transformation that hadn't yet been done. COVID was a big test, right? What analog processes do we have to transform now? It was a huge forcing factor. So then there was a huge hiring uptick there, right? So in that area, if you decided 10, 15 years ago when you were in incredibly high demand that you weren't going to do assignments and assessments and all that, you probably came to that conclusion because you had a lot of options, right? And you framed it as, I know my value and my worth. I have all these other options. All these other companies will make me an offer without doing all that. I don't need to do that. We're not there today. We're no longer there today. So it's always a good idea, just in the land of like critical thinking and metacognition, it's always a good idea to question your own beliefs. Check back in. Is this still true? Does this still make sense? Is it still strategic for me to think this way? Because guess what? Life in the world changes. If you didn't know that before, you probably really get it now. Like, we ebb, we flow. That's what a supposed free market does. Labor market is a supposed free market. Of course, I'm not going to debate all of the things that are not free about our actual existing version of capitalism, because I can't solve it. You can't. So we're not going to talk about it. But like within that, how can you navigate to get what you need? Right? I am always coming from the perspective of radical accountability, and all those things could be true. All these things could be broken, or these systems can be unfair, but how can you navigate it to get what you need? What's within your control? What's not within your control? Focus on what's in your control. Put little energy on the things that are not. That is good sound guidance. All right, what else we got here? Let's see. Before laying someone off, does HR have to check every open internal role, or do they just consult the sacred spreadsheet and wait for it to whisper reduce headcount? That's a really, really good question. It depends. If it's a small company and we're laying off, we have to lay off 5 headcount. Sure, we're probably going to reduce headcount. We're probably going to look around and see if there are other places that those people could go, right? Even in a large company, I suppose they might do that. But when you see these giant 10%, 20% reduction in headcounts, no, because even if they moved you somewhere else, they'd still have to reduce that headcount, right? So the goal is to reduce X number of millions of dollars in, sorry, dogs barking, can't help that. But yeah, so less so when it's a big layoff, a big reduction in force, because again, the goal is to reduce a dollar amount. And you have to reduce X number of people. So if I am reducing, if I have 100 people I need to lay off, and I go look for places for those 100 people to look internal, to go internally. If there's an open head count, yes, sometimes, but probably not at that level. Probably not. They're giving leaders, they ask leaders to, select sometimes from their teams who to let go. In some cases, sure, people will be moved, but I think it's the rarity, and definitely they don't have to. No, this is absolutely not something that they have to. Some company may have an internal policy where before we lay someone off, we have to check and see what else, if there may be an internal mobility team or something like that. I don't know, because I've never worked in large companies like that. I really am pretty averse to large corporate environments. That's me as a neurodivergent, understanding where I fit and where I'm valued and where I don't and where I'm not, right? I'm not valued as a cog in a machine. I'm valued as somebody in a scrappy, chaotic environment trying to help build the machines. Once the machines are built and the suits come in to button stuff up, I'm Mary Poppins my butt out, because that's not where I fit. I'm not a highly structured person. And so I don't want to live in a highly structured world where things are slow, and everyone's CYAing, and I don't do corporate politics well. So that was a really good question, though. I'll put that back and go to the next one. All right. Interview performance is where I get stuck. I treat it like band practice or football practice for game day. Very funny. So I think that the more you practice talking about yourself and, sharing your unique value proposition, having it very like a pitch style unique value proposition that you can repeat to anybody, whether it's somebody in the elevator, whether it's in an interview, whether it's you meet somebody at the grocery store checkout line who maybe is hiring or whatever. So I really encourage people to have that UVP super clear and practice it a lot. Mock interviewing is a good idea for people who struggle with interview performance. Also, so AI, there are a lot of really crappy, terrible use cases in AI. We know this. We all know this. I often think it's hilarious that we're trying to optimize creativity before we're trying to use AI to cure cancer, but whatever. One really good use case is to take the job description that you're interviewing for, okay, and the resume used to get the interview, and the LinkedIn profile of the person interviewing you, if you know that, and add all three. I have a custom bot called the Rebel HR Advisor bot. I actually will see if there's a way that I can share it with everybody. How about this? I can't add LinkedIn comments during the show right now, but I can add it after the show. So go to it's also pinned at the top of my profile on LinkedIn. But anyway, I have an advisor bot. Take those three things, your resume that you used, the job description, and the person's LinkedIn profile that you're interviewing with, upload it into the Rebel HR Advisor bot chat GPT, and ask it to create a robust custom interview guide. And it really will. It will give you questions to prepare. Do that 24 hours in advance and really look through those questions. Be prepared. Have well thought out answers. It'll also highlight any gaps between the job description and your resume and experience so that you can specifically plan answers to the most challenging questions. The most challenging questions are the ones that poke at areas where you may not be as strong. So have an answer. Yeah, I didn't do this here and here, but I did do a lot of this here. And as a result, I enjoyed it. And now I'm taking this Coursera class to learn more of it. Whatever. I don't know. You got to come up with I can help you one-on-one with stuff like that. If you join the Rebel HR community, which I'll just throw up here real quick, get it up there on the screen. There's a QR code. Super impressed with myself because I've never really used this technology. But anyway, go grab that, join the community, and I will give you this kind of one-on-one feedback any day you want, any hour you want. Like I'm living there helping people, okay? But yeah, so the guide, the interview guide, Miguel, is a really good, but also, do something before the interview that gets your energy up and gets you, like if it's go for a walk, do a cold plunge, go drink a milkshake. I don't really know, but listen to your favorite song, get pumped up, get yourself exactly like you said, Miguel, like you get prepped for a football game or a sporting event, same thing. You want your energy, right? People's energy is palpable. right? And us interviewers, like, we show up and like we feel you. If you're stressed, frustrated, defeated, we feel that. You don't have to say it, we feel it. Well, maybe not all, but I do. So, get pumped up, but also a great deal of those nerves reduce the moment you are prepared. You've read a bunch of prep interview questions. You've practiced prep interview questions. You are looking at the AI analysis of your fitness to the role and the company and the person, and even from the perspective of the way that interviewer is thinking based on their background. They're likely to value this or that more than this or that, just looking at their background. So again, it gives you so much more color to work with and to feel practiced and prepped. So I hope that's helpful. Let's see. Yeah, no, you won't freeze, Miguel, if you practice. Let's see. Is there a line here though? Like, if it's a project. I use AI as coach and band director. Exactly. Okay. Is there a line here though? Like, if it's a project that the candidate has to do as part of the interview process, but it's unpaid. I luckily haven't had to do this, but I had a friend who did. So like, I want to say in 27 years, I have never won, and I've worked with hundreds of different companies from when I was on the agency side, as well as tons of contract roles on corporate side. So I've been in and around lots of different companies. Not only that, but I'm in and around lots of different recruiters who also work for lots of different companies. I've never, ever heard of a company having you do a project with the intention of using it without hiring you. Let me say this one more time, because I see this a lot out there. I've never once seen like a reputable company. I don't work with non-reputable companies, but a reputable company is not going to ruin their brand and their image and their reputation to steal a project from a specific candidate. If it's that good that we could use it and implement it, which they're rarely things that are usable and implementable without the person who created it. But if it was that good, we'd probably hire you. You'd be more valuable to us as a hire than just a project. The projects are to see how you think. The projects are to see what type of work product you produce. Okay, the projects are to see what you think a quality presentation looks like. The project it's a proof point. For years and years, we hired based on gut intuition and the CEO's friend from the country club's kid. That was how hiring happened. And then over the last 20 years, we worked at adding a lot of different ways to make it fairer, more equitable, and give everyone a fairer shot to level the playing field, right? So it was less about pedigree and where you went to school and which logos you worked for. Now anyone can compete. So if you automatically reject the idea that proving your skills and your value is a problem, you're going to struggle in this job market because there's a lot of talent. We're flush. Again, in the tech and a tech adjacent world, we are flush with talent. So I highly encourage people to check back in with their assumptions on these things. And also, what is the real risk? What is the real thing that you're trying to avoid? I think what people don't want to do is do a lot of this work to not get the job. But you'll never know if you don't do the work. So, and of course there's a line and only you know where that is. But again, create the line in the sand, Thomas, after you consider all these different perspectives, after you really sit with yourself and see it from more than just that one angle of inconvenience and respect for your time. Like, consider everything else I've shared and then draw your line. Also, if you have a really niche job search, which I recommend, I don't think you should be applying for everything. It's not a numbers game. We are working with the law of diminishing returns on applications. So if you have a niche, clear job search and strategy, and like, I want to work for these 20 companies, and I'm going to talk to people on LinkedIn at these 20 companies. I'm going to network these 20, like, everything about my focus is these 20 companies, then your line is different with those 20 companies. If they ask you to do an assessment or a this or that, yes, because your entire strategy your entire strategy is to get into those 20 companies. So of course you'll do the whatever's asked of you in those 20. It also changes the perception around some of these asks. Good questions, Thomas. All right, let me see if I can get to one more quick. And then join me next Wednesday. I'm here every Wednesday morning doing the same thing. And as you can hear, I will literally answer anything. And I'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love ultra transparency. I am filterless. Take advantage of that. All right, stop, dogs. When HR says we explored all other options, does that mean actual internal roles, or did everyone just stare at Workday until it made eye contact first? Someone's funny. Okay, when HR says we explored all options, does that mean actual internal roles, or did everyone? I don't think that anyone's exploring much. If you're talking about in the layoff scenario, like before we lay off a person, do we look and see where else they might fit? Like, yeah, if it's small scale, yes. If it's large scale, not likely. I don't know what they do in the giant megacorps, because I'd rather chew glass than work for any of them. I mean, and I love a lot of people who do work for some big companies, but like, it doesn't fit for me, right? So I don't really know what goes on there, but I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with nobody explored all options. Some of the verbiage in the auto reject emails, though, is true. When we say we went with better aligned candidates, or we're interviewing better, that's probably true. Again, you got to think of the volume we're dealing with at this point. You may be qualified, but also 200 others are too. And then, we already went through the scenario of I can't call all 200. So that's why we put something at the top of the funnel to narrow it down. And it does, until everyone starts doing them, and then it maybe won't. Let's see. Okay, so like I said, it depends on the person. I have actually used a PIP to support people's success. So that's the cute statement you made. Haha, it's very funny. Like, it is funny. And it is the perception that all PIPs are always a path to termination. And they can be, but that's not necessarily true. We also have used PIPs and do use PIPs to try to improve people. What would be the alternative if someone's underperforming? What would be the alternative to a performance improvement plan to keep them? Exactly. So yes, it's in the room with us. All right, let's see what we got. Don't forget to grab the QR code. Don't forget I'm here every week. Hey, Gregory. Hey, Abraham. Anyone that can offer me a job opportunity. Abraham, join us at the QR code in the community, the Rebel HR community. It's up here in the QR code. Scan that, jump in there, and we can go deeper into all these things, and we can help potentially with specific jobs. What advice do you have for someone who got lost in job searching? Have a very niche, proactive, strategic plan for your job search. Don't reactively just apply to whatever you see posted. That doesn't work. It's not working. Everyone you talk to who's doing that will tell you it's not working. Unless you have an unbelievably highly sought after background. Again, in tech and tech adjacent, that's not going to be as much a case. Unless you're like a female Rust developer and you're like 28, you're probably in that case, definitely not struggling. But other than that, I mean, yeah, everybody is struggling if they're not really focused. Okay. So get a focused search plan. Get clear on what companies you want to work for. Get proactive as if you're doing business development, as if you have your product marketing hat on and you are the product or the service. Approach your search from that angle. Join me in the Rebel HR community. Get that QR code and I will help more there. Awesome, Gregory. Gregory is also a great resource and he'll be in the community as well. So I really appreciate everybody joining. Again, don't forget to grab the QR code and join us next Wednesday morning. Bring your questions, have your questions ready, and I'll make sure that I get to them. I really appreciate everybody being here. This will be replayed on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. See you later.